For a long time, Jake Reiner lived in the shadow of a legendary name, a name that opened doors but also built walls he could never fully escape. Being the son of Rob Reiner meant growing up surrounded by fame, influence, and constant public attention, yet Jake chose silence when everyone expected him to speak. From the outside, it looked like an easy life filled with privilege and comfort, but the truth was far more complicated. Jake watched the world praise his father while quietly forming his own understanding of success, failure, and the heavy price of being connected to power. As a child, Jake learned early that every word could be twisted and every action judged. This awareness shaped him into someone careful, observant, and deeply reflective, someone who preferred listening over talking while the world kept making assumptions about him. Hollywood is not just a place of lights and cameras. It is a system that rewards loyalty and punishes honesty. Jake saw how opinions could be bought, how silence could be safer than truth, and how speaking out often came with consequences no one talks about publicly. Over the years, people asked why Jake never shared his thoughts on politics, fame, or his father's influence. Some assumed he had nothing to say, while others believed he was protecting the family image, but the real reason was far more personal and complex. Jake was watching, learning, and waiting for the right moment. He understood that once words are released, they cannot be taken back, and he refused to speak until he felt the message truly mattered. Behind closed doors, Jake wrestled with questions many people never consider. What does it mean to grow up with power nearby, but not fully in your hands? And how do you define your own identity when the world keeps labeling you? He noticed how narratives are created and repeated until they become accepted as truth. He saw how people are pushed into boxes, either praised or canceled, with very little room for honest conversation or growth. Jake's silence was not weakness, it was preparation. While others rushed to share opinions online, he chose to understand the system, the people controlling it, and the fear that keeps so many voices quiet. As time passed, the pressure to speak increased. Social media demanded instant reactions, headlines demanded bold statements, and silence itself started to look suspicious in a world addicted to noise. Jake felt the weight of expectation not only as Rob Reiner's son, but as someone who understood how dangerous careless words could be. He knew that speaking the truth could bring clarity, but could also bring backlash from powerful circles. There were moments when he almost spoke, moments when he felt the urge to correct lies or challenge popular narratives. Each time he stepped back, reminding himself that timing is everything. He watched public figures rise quickly and fall even faster, often because they spoke without thinking or trusted the wrong people. These examples reinforced his belief that silence, when used wisely, can be a form of strength. As the years went on, something changed inside Jake. He realized that staying silent forever would also be a choice, and not necessarily the right one. Silence protects you, but it can also allow problems to grow unchecked. The world around him felt more divided, more controlled by fear, and less open to real discussion. Jake began to feel that his perspective, shaped by proximity to power, might actually help people understand what is really happening behind the scenes. This realization marked a turning point. Jake was no longer thinking only about himself or his family, but about the larger picture and the cost of continued silence. He started writing privately, organizing his thoughts, and reflecting on what truly needed to be said. This was not about fame or attention, it was about responsibility. Jake knew that when he finally spoke, it would have to be honest, careful, and meaningful. Empty words would change nothing, but the right warning, delivered at the right time, could change everything. By the end of this chapter of his life, Jake was ready. The silence that once protected him was about to be broken, and the world was not prepared for what he had to say. When Jake Reiner finally decided to speak, it was not done through noise or drama, but through calm and carefully chosen words. That calmness made people stop and listen because it felt different from the usual loud voices fighting for attention. Jake made it clear that his silence was never about fear alone, but about understanding the weight of words. He believed that speaking without clarity only adds confusion, and confusion is exactly what keeps people controlled. He began by talking about freedom, a word many people use but few truly examine. Jake explained that freedom in powerful spaces often comes with conditions that are never written down. According to Jake, success can look like independence from the outside, but inside it can feel like a cage. The higher someone rises, the more expectations are placed on what they can and cannot say. He warned that many public figures live with invisible rules. These rules decide which topics are safe and which ones could end careers overnight. Jake said this control does not always come from threats, but from comfort. When people are comfortable, they are easier to manage and less likely to risk everything for truth. He spoke about how access itself becomes a leash. Invitations, opportunities, and approval slowly replace honesty, and over time people stop noticing the trade they're making. Jake explained that the system does not need to silence everyone. It only needs enough people to stay quiet so the rest fall in line naturally. One of his strongest warnings was about narratives. Jake said narratives are more powerful than facts because they shape how facts are interpreted. Once a narrative is accepted, anyone who questions it becomes the problem. This fear keeps many intelligent voices silent, even when they see something is wrong. Jake pointed out that division is not an accident. It is encouraged because divided people are easier to distract and control. He explained how people are pushed to pick sides quickly. When emotions take over, critical thinking quietly disappears. Jake warned that outrage has become a tool. It keeps people reacting instead of reflecting, shouting instead of listening. He spoke directly to younger audiences, telling them not to confuse likes and shares with real courage. Online support feels powerful, but it disappears the moment it becomes risky. Jake said the internet rewards speed, not truth. The faster you react, the less time you have to think. He explained that many people regret things they said publicly, but by then the damage is already done. Screenshots last forever, and forgiveness is not guaranteed. Jake emphasized the role of fear in shaping behavior. Fear of being canceled, ignored, or cut off keeps people obedient. He said fear is more effective than force. When people police themselves, the system does not have to. Jake described how people slowly adjust their beliefs to match what is acceptable. Over time, they forget they ever thought differently. He warned that this slow adjustment is dangerous. It changes who you are without you even noticing. Jake talked about independence of thought as the most valuable form of freedom. Once that is lost, everything else becomes negotiable. He encouraged people to question why they believe what they believe. Not every popular idea is true, and not every unpopular idea is wrong. Jake said real thinking is uncomfortable. It forces you to sit with uncertainty instead of hiding behind slogans. He warned against blind loyalty to any group, ideology, or figure. Loyalty without questioning always leads to disappointment. Jake explained that power does not fear anger as much as it fears understanding. Angry people burn out, but informed people persist. He made it clear that his message was not about rejecting success or influence. It was about seeing the full cost before chasing it. Jake said power always asks for something in return. Sometimes it asks for silence, sometimes for compromise, and sometimes for your integrity. He encouraged people to decide their limits early. Waiting until pressure arrives makes it harder to say no. Jake acknowledged that speaking up comes with consequences. He did not promise safety or applause. Instead, he promised clarity. He said clarity is worth more than approval because it allows you to sleep at night. As his message spread, reactions quickly followed. Supporters praised his honesty, while critics questioned his intentions. Jake addressed this reaction calmly. He said attacking the messenger is easier than facing the message. He reminded people that truth does not depend on who says it. Truth stands on its own, even when it is uncomfortable.